Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle Podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this podcast, what we're going to do is we're talking about the three-peat. No, we're not talking about sports, but in the sports reference of a three-peat. And what I mean by that is that when you have a three-peat in sports, that means you've won the championship 3 consecutive years. But this time we're applying it to music. Now, if you've been following the podcast, you know that we've done some three-peats on some artists and their first 3 albums. And this podcast will be no different. This episode, we are talking about OutKast as we take a look at their first 3 albums: Southernplayalisticadillacmuzik, ATLiens, and Aquemeni. And I've got a special co-host, my man, King Jerm from the Frocast Podcast is with me in the building. So sit tight. After the break, we will present to you three-peat, OutKast, here on the 12 Kyle Podcast. Let's get it. And just like that, we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle. This is the 12 Kyle Podcast, and we are talking about the three-peat. If you've been following the podcast, you know that we've done a few of these three-peat where we go through 3 albums from a particular artist, and we kind of view it like from the sports angle. It's a championship, and then we'll come back and come around after we break it down and just talk about, you know, what we liked or maybe what we didn't like about these particular albums. But you see the headline, you see we have a guest in the building. Well, he's really not a guest. He is one half of the almighty Frocast. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my man, King Jerm. Jerm, what up, baby?
What's going on, Kyle, man? Thank you for having me again, man. I'm over here in the plush 12 Kyle Podcast studio, man. Y'all should feel the leather. Is this Italian leather, 12 Kyle? This shit is plush, man. This is amazing. I mean, whoo! 12 Kyle know how to treat the guests, man. So how y'all doing, man? How you doing?
Man, glad to have you on here, man. And got to thank you for having me on your podcast, episode 454.
454, yes.
454 of the Frocast, man, with you and Queen Jerm, your lovely wife. Man, I had a ball. I could not stop laughing. If you did not get a chance to check that podcast, I'll make sure that you check out that podcast as well as all of their other podcasts. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to tell you guys about his podcast. Jerm, why don't you tell the people who don't know about your podcast when you guys drop in the whole 9?
Oh, man, well, I got a little podcast called The Frocast, man. We drop a little podcast, man. You know, we drop every Friday, you know, on all DSPs. So we out there on all of them. It's just me and my wife, man. We just talk about, you know, current events, situations. You know, if you really like to hear, like, I'm going to put you in the mind of a black married couple that you see on TV or something. Like, yeah, it's just like, it's like that. And, you know, we just keep it, you know, we keep it real. You know, for the most part, you know, so most of the shit, it'd be real arguments. None of the shit is phony. Like, but
y'all real.
But we have a good time, man. We have a good time, though, you know.
And you don't have to be married to appreciate the
not at all.
The exchanges that go back and forth. Just real good people, man. One of my favorite podcasts, period, no matter what. So make sure that you check out the Frocast. Like I said, every Friday. Hey, they don't miss a beat now. They're there every Friday. They ain't taking no weeks off. They're not doing seasons. I mean, you know, no knock on anyone who does, but Jerm and Queen Jerm, they're there every Friday, so you can get your earful. And the podcast usually you guys run about hour 15, hour 20 minutes.
Yeah. We don't try to keep it that long. We like the people at church, man. We don't try to keep it that long, man. You know.
No doubt. With Jerm, I had to get you back on, man. And like I said, if you've been following the podcast, you heard Jerm on here before. I know Jerm's been on before. We talked about Jordans on one podcast, the Air Jordans. We talked about left-handed cigarettes on one podcast.
Yes.
And Jerm just mostly talk because I don't know much about left-handed cigarettes, but yeah, man. So on this one, we're going to talk about the three-peat, and this particular artist that we're going to talk about is none other than OutKast. OutKast's first three albums, if you don't know, they are, the first one was Southernplayalisticadillacmuzik, the second one ATLiens, and the third Aquemeni. So now, if you've been following the podcast, you know this is a little different than what I normally do when I'm breaking down albums who have turned 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years old. So I got Jerm on here. So let's go ahead and get it started, man. The first of the three-peats. You got, before you win 2 championships, you got to win 1. So OutKast's first championship was Southernplayalisticadillacmuzik. That album dropped April 26, 1994. It was produced by Organized Noise. It was obviously certified platinum. So let's go back. Jerm, where were you in April of 1994?
Oh man, April 94. I was about to turn 16 that year.
Young buck.
And yes, young buck. And I remember being at the mall. My birthday's May 11th, so just so happened to be at the mall. You know, we was at the tape store because, you know, walking with grandma. I said, "Hey, grandma, let's walk to the tape store," and they was just taking OutKast out of the damn box, and I was just like, "Oh shit, that's that group that got Players Ball. That's that. Oh shit, I gotta get it." So I was like, "Grandma, can you please give me an early birthday gift?" And you know, she, you know, little talking, little convincing. She bought me this tape. Then I was like, "Well, grandma, you know," she's like, "Well, let's go get you a Walkman." She gave me a Walkman. Oh, wow. Hey, that was my early birthday gift. And when I tell you, I let that tape rock till my tape pop. That's what I did with that first album with Southern Playalistic. That album, it really changed me as a person. Like it kind of, that album shaped me. Like at that time in life when I heard that, it was something that I really related to, legitimate Southern hip hop. Like not no shit that I had to be ashamed of. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that I like. You know, my friends say that shit like, "Oh, you like that shit?" Like, I mean, yeah. But this right here, I was like, you cannot deny these guys. I said, you cannot deny these guys. And it just really, it made me proud to be from the South when this album dropped right here. It really did.
No doubt, man. I totally understand and feel where you're coming from. For me, April 26, 1994, I know exactly where I was, or at least around that time, I was getting ready for Freaknik. I was a college student at South Carolina State University, Jerm.
He did it. He did it. I'm gonna start a 12 cal challenge. Every time he mentions this university, y'all have to take a shot. That's the 12 cal challenge. Hey, that's adults can do. That's safe, and you know it's not embarrassing. Hey, but
that's my school, man. I'm a proud Bulldog, man. So yeah, I was at South Carolina State University. I had come to Atlanta for Freaknik, and came down here and lost my ever-loving mind. And that following week, this album came out. And I remember hearing, you know, like you said, the single, Players Ball. And I mean, obviously that was, you know, hot in the streets. But I just remember going and buying the tape. And when I bought the tape, man, I could not stop playing it. It was something that, man, just really resonated with me. And not just me, but all of my friends, because we finally had somebody that looked like us, that kind of sounded like us, that wasn't really, and you know, trying to cater to New York or LA or whatever the case may be. They were just their authentic selves. And it was dope, man. It was really, really dope. And I remember buying that tape. And then the funny thing was, I think I had the tape, Jerm, I might have had it for a month. And then the tape came up missing. So you know what I did? Went and bought the CD. So OutKast got my money. And, you know, CDs weren't, I was a broke college student. So it was a lot for me to go drop $10 on that CD, man. But I had to have it. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the singles that were released, Players Ball, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, which was the title track, and then Get Up, Get Out. Now, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but give me a couple of things that you think what made them outstanding on this particular album.
Okay, outstanding, I would say just representing the South, giving a good picture of Southern hip hop. Like I said, they legitimized it in my eyes. Like, that's why I was just like, so they legitimized Southern hip hop on this album. It was new wave. It was something we never heard before. Like, nobody from the South, it was new to us. And I mean, I could go on for days about this album. You just like this. If I could go anywhere on the planet, and if I had to be on an island, this would be one of the albums I take with me, because it has so many. It has a special place in my heart. So it's so many nice things I can say about this album, but I can't say enough about it. It's one of those 12 Kyle. I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it, because it just brings back that much nostalgia. Like, Young Jerm was like, this album take me, man. Like, it meant so much. I bought this album 11 times, man.
Wow.
Like, I'm like, I got a copy right now that's never been opened, like a CD.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
I bought this album because I always, like, every time something I'm missing, that, because I remember on the CD it had like the little what was the drawing on it?
The half naked woman.
Yes, with the colors going around it, right? She was yes. So, and I remember it kept coming up missing, so I buy another one. So one day I said, "Look, I bought one." I said, "I ain't even never open this one." You know, in the age of streaming, so I never had to open it. So that's why I'm like, yeah. You know, so I still had that one closed up. Like, I was just like, I bought this. That's the most bought album of all my albums. Never bought one more than 11 times. Sorry.
I bought Illmatic 5 times, and that's because my friends kept stealing it from me. But I currently have 2 copies of the Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music CD in my house right now. I still have 2 copies of the CDs. Man, that's dope, man. 11 times. Gee,
11.
Golly. Wow. See, what made them outstanding on this album, much like what you said, man, they were from the South. Yes. And, you know, I came up in an era where I loved hip hop and gravitated toward hip hop. But, you know, obviously the hip hop that I grew up on, there was nobody coming from the South. And then when we finally did have Southern acts, it was, you know, obviously Ghetto Boys, and then Luke and 2 Live Crew. And then right before OutKast was UGK, Underground Kings, out of Houston. But there was nobody from this area, or whatever the case may be. I'm from South Carolina, so it was definitely nobody from South Carolina. But, you know, Atlanta really wasn't like a place that was hitting musically at that particular time. But yeah, they definitely put the South on the map. And like I said, they looked like us. Like, when you heard them, when you would hear them talk, they sounded like some Southern dudes. Like, they sounded country, you know.
Yes.
And they made it cool to be country, because at that particular time, like, you weren't gonna get any type of airplay or acceptance, you know, above the Mason-Dixon line, you know, as far as music was concerned. So much like, you know, I should say, unlike Boys, unlike UGK, unlike Luke, you know, OutKast was probably the first group that I can remember from the South that wasn't regional. Like, their success wasn't regional. When OutKast blew, they blew across the country. You know, eventually, it didn't happen overnight, but, you know, eventually, you know, success and everything helped propel them to, you know, out of the stratosphere.
Didn't that kind of make you angry when they did that? When they got, like, I was just like, man, this was our thing. Y'all not supposed to like, I was okay with nobody not liking OutKast but us in the South. Like, I was super okay with that. Like, I was just,
well, you know what? You know, I think that's very typical of hip hop fans.
Yes.
I think that's very, you know, you want your artists and the people that you really, really identify with to stay with you. It's like almost that thing where you have, like, let's say a really dope underground MC. You want him to stay underground. The minute that he or she makes a hit that makes it to the charts and they start getting play on BET and MTV, you're like, oh man, you know, now the masses have them now. So you don't really want to share them with everybody else. So I totally feel where you're coming from. Yeah. But they were ours, man. They were ours. They represented us. And I mean, like I said, I was in school at the time. By the time that I left Freaknik, I knew I was coming to Atlanta. So I'd already made up my mind. I'm moving to Atlanta. I mean, I fell in love 20 times in one weekend. So
Wasn't that a 3 Stacks verse?
It might have been.
He said something about come down for Freak Nigga. Then next thing you want to move to Atlanta.
That's true. That's true, man. I mean, like I did a podcast on it. It was Freak Nigga was everything, and I mean, like just to hear these guys at that particular time, and it was a great movement, and it was a great wave, and they literally opened the door for Atlanta, and it was one of the reasons why I moved here in 1997 and been here ever since. And I don't think anybody, I think we all can recognize the dominance that Atlanta has had over hip hop over the last 15, 20 years. It would not have happened had OutKast not, opened the door. Well, I can't even say they opened the door. They really kicked the door down, to be honest. As far as Southernplayalisticadillacmuzik, the album, what's your favorite track on the album?
Get Up, Get Out.
Okay.
Okay. Get Up, Get Out is my favorite because it was my alarm clock song. It came on every day. So every day when I woke up, Get Up, Get Out came on for about 7 years. So from the time I was 16 to the time I moved out of my house, that's what my alarm clock song was. Wow, so Get Up, Get Out is my favorite song on the album. Yes.
Okay. For me, I will say the same. Get Up, Get Out is my favorite track on the album. Once I saw the video, I was like, yo, I mean, like I was already hooked, but everybody was on there was just, buzzing, man. It was just great to see Southern MCs just go at it like that.
Spit some real stuff, relatable.
No
like
question.
it was just like spit relatable rhymes. Like, I mean, come on, man. CeeLo, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and say CeeLo probably had the best verse on the song. Like, did. I mean, hands down. CeeLo killed it, man.
Yeah, he did. Shout out to CeeLo with that dope verse. What about the song that you could have done without?
Now this is a tough one for me. Technically, I would say the interlude, but I love the Peaches interlude because Peaches' voice, I used to be in love with her. I used to be like, man, I gotta get me a Georgia girl. Boy, they talk like that's what I was just. So.
And you got you a Georgia girl.
Yeah, it's funny how the world work out like that. But shh, don't tell her that. Don't tell her the inspiration was.
Right.
But a song I could have did without. How you pulling teeth here, Cal? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go with Funky Ride, even though it's not a song, but technically it is a song. But I like Funky Ride. Right. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to go to answer the question, I go with Funky Ride.
You know what, man? Funky Ride was a joint that I probably didn't appreciate back then, but I do now. And like back then, I'm depending on my mood, I might have skipped it or I might have just, but now I'm letting it ride because I want to hear it. Song I could have done without was Deep. Yeah, Deep is okay. It's not.
But that was the introduction to ATLiens. That was like
right. But you got to understand. So we didn't have the context of having ATLiens.
Okay, so I got you.
Now Deep makes sense. But I'm going kind of back off of what I felt at the time. If I had to get rid of one song in 1994, I'd probably say Deep. And you're right, Deep. Where Deep leaves off at is where ATLiens picks up at, which is the second championship. We'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, I could have. That's the one song I could have done without was Deep, and it wasn't. It's not like it's a bad song, and it's a song. When I listen to it now, I'm definitely letting it ride. But I'd probably say back then, I probably skip it. Championship moment, winning the Source Award as the best newcomer in hip hop, and of course that was when famously OutKast. At the 1995 Source Awards, the audience thought that Biggie should have won, and they subsequently booed the hell out of OutKast. That being said, I think that was their championship moment. How, I know you touched on it a little earlier, how did this album impact you?
Like I said earlier, it shaped me. It basically it gave me pride to be, it made me proud to be Southern, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, when we was just dominated with the New York influence, it was something never felt right to me about accepting that New York way. Cause I live down South and we go up there talking like this, they're going to be like, you country, like, you know what I'm saying? So I just was always like, I'm not with that New York stuff. Like I've never owned a pair of Timbs, none of that, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, I mean, yeah, I'm the country dude walking down the street in the snow in tennis shoes. That's me. But like I said, this album it made me proud to be Southern, and it just, I don't know, man, made me see, like, it gave me game. Like it was all of that. It was just, this is an important album in my life. Like it's part of the storybook of Jerm. This would be on there, like one of them albums.
No doubt. And I echo some of those same sentiments, man. I think what was interesting was that for the first time I saw cats I could relate to in hip hop. You know, now as much as I idolize Run DMC, Tribe Called Quest, I could never be those guys because I didn't necessarily live the lifestyle that they lived or lived where they lived. You know, I could live vicariously through Ice Cube, you know, and learn more about South Central LA, but I had never been there before, you know, other than his music. But I had been to Atlanta and been able to see some of the things that they had talked about, been able to ride on some of the streets that they talked about. And that made a difference. So it was definitely more relatable. And I finally had some, and again, and there's no disrespect to, you know, Ghetto Boys or Luke, you know, or UGK for that matter. But I really could relate to, you know, OutKast a whole lot more. And relatively speaking, they were right around the same age as I was. Maybe I was a couple of years older. So they weren't like that much younger than me. Then we moved to the second championship. ATLiens. This album dropped August 27th, 1996. Also produced by Organized Noise, OutKast themselves, Mr. DJ. This album went double platinum. So, Jerm, where were you August 27th, 1996?
Oh, man, I had just graduated from high school, like, you know, a couple months prior.
Okay.
I was working at Cone Mills. Cone Mills was this textile plant, you know, that, you know, basically where you go and just say, hey, throw your hands in the air and say, I give up, you know. And I was in that process of like, you know, I was 18. I'm working at the mill. I'm making good money, you know, OutKast album coming out. And, you know, when that album came out, man, so I was working at the mill, and that's why I had to make my decision. Like, do you want to go to school or do you want to be a working nigga the rest of your life? Mm-hmm. And so that's the process. That's where I was at that time in August of 96 when that album dropped.
No doubt.
But I had money to go buy me a brand new speaker system when this album came out because I had said job.
You had a job, right?
Yes, sir. I'm talking about the big CD changer, you know, back in 96. Like, I was like, oh.
Wait, did you have the 10 joint or the 6 joint?
Oh, it was the 6. You know, the 10 wasn't out. Hey, Kyle's 96 now. The 10,
you're right.
Yeah, you know, the 10 was probably about $400-500, man. So, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I remember having the 6-disc change in my car. You couldn't tell me shit.
Hey, I had them Vegas speakers hooked up to it, and with the little cord stick, the little Sermon Vegas speaker, so it had some thump to it.
I'm gonna take you back. I had a 6-disc changer, and it was up under my driver's seat.
Ooh.
In my Nissan Sentra, sitting at 13s.
But I keep them clean though.
Oh, for sure. August 27th, 1996, where was I? I was still at South Carolina State University, and I was trying to graduate. I would be graduating in a few months in December of 1996, but I remember that summer distinctly because I had completed playing football, so I was about to enter my 5th year at South Carolina State University, and there was no football, so there was only just, you know, me and my studies just to finish up, you know, my time at SC State. And this album came out that summer just as we were getting ready to go back to school. I remember that distinctly, going down to I went to the Prince of Orange Mall to buy the CD, and I bought it and just banging it in the car. I remember just sitting in the parking lot. I didn't even go straight to the crib. I just sat and listened to the first run in the parking lot. And obviously the singles that were released, Elevators, Me and You, ATLiens, the title track, and Jazzy Bell. Now, Jerm, what do you think made them outstanding on this particular album?
The growth, not just with them musically, but them lyrically, the sound changed. It was just like, oh, you thought we were just about pimping hoes and slamming Cadillac doors? No, nigga, come strap in for this one. You know what I'm saying? And also it was just like they just remained like they even got colder to me on this one. Like to me, ATLiens is their hardest album. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, just with what they saying, like Andre said in Jazzy Bell, a line that resonates to this day. And most of the girls we liked in high school, now they dyking. Like, I was just like, wow. Like, I mean, when I heard that in 96, it didn't make no sense to me. But now I'm on Facebook and at 40 and I'm like, wow, Andre said this. Right. Like, he said, fat titties turn to teardrops, fat ass turn laugh. And I'm just looking at some of these girls that we used to, and I'm just like, whoa, Andre said this in a song. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so it was just like, just the fortune telling on that song, the foretelling, whatever that word I'm looking for. Yes, that.
No doubt. Yeah, man, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the growth, you could hear the growth in both of them as far as their rhymes. I think by the second album, Big Boy had a child. Yep. And Dre, I think, was dating, or he was either dating or he had just broken up with young lady from the group Total, the R&B group Total. And so you could hear the growth. You could hear that they weren't talking and rapping about the same things. And I remember when the Elevators video dropped and Dre had that turban on. And it's like, I'll never forget it, man. He had that turban on, and I want to say, like, let's say the video dropped on Monday. By the time Saturday hit and we went to the club, man, I saw at least 5 dudes in the club with turbans on.
Hey, and I was one of those guys. Once I found out they was at the beauty supply store, oh man, I had all different colors. I'm talking about I had them to match all things, bro. Come on.
Oh my gosh. Don't say it ain't so, Jerm.
What? Man, listen, I couldn't wait till Friday night came for me to go to the football game. Because, you know, like I said, I worked at the mill. I got money. I'm fresh out of high school. I'm about to go to my old high school game. I had my turban on, bro. Everybody looking like I had a Michigan. I will never forget. I had a Michigan football jersey on. The maize and gold, the dark blue one. And I had a dark blue turban on with it and some Barry Sanders Nikes on. I will never forget. And look, I had the football gloves before Puffy and Mace did it. I had the football gloves on because I remember at halftime my cousin seen me because he was playing. He was like, "Hey, let me get them gloves," and I was like, "No, like, yeah, you actually playing? Nah, I'm just wearing these for style." Like, so wow. yes.
Wow, that's what's up, man. Oh man, I think you know, like you said, it's just they had style. I also remember some OutKast fans, not a lot, but some OutKast fans giving some pushback on this album. Like, they didn't like the direction that they were going. They were just like, oh man, wait a minute now. You know, you open up the album cover and it's this cartoon and it's showing them like, and they're talking to aliens and it's all spaced out and everything like that. So it's like, wait a minute. We went from, you know, Braves jerseys and ball caps on the first album to this guy got a turban on and, you know, they got this alien in the cartoon and all of this stuff. Like what? So for some people, not like I said, not a lot, but for some fans, like it was too much for them. And I distinctly remember one dude that I went to school with. When he heard the album, he was like, "Man, I ain't fucking with OutKast no more." And I was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Man, this ain't what I want." He wanted them to be the same on the second album as they were on Southernplayalisticadillacmuzik. And honestly, they just weren't, you know, in that space anymore. Like I said, they were both maturing. But yeah, those are some of the I think that stood out on the album. You could hear the growth. You saw the growth. You saw that these guys were starting to be trendsetters. Because like I said, when I went to the club and I saw somebody on a college campus who had not been wearing a turban at any point before, all of a sudden the album, the video comes out on Monday. You see it on Rap City, you see it on MTV, and then the next thing you know, on Saturday you got a turban on your head. Nah, man, I'm not. Come on, man, who you fooling?
I mean, hey, man, come on, Kyle. Influence, man, the influence. I mean,
I see it now. And I mean, that just speaks to who they are. What are you saying?
Hey, look, so you telling me when young Kyle stepped on the South Carolina State campus with his pants on backwards because Criss Cross did it. Okay.
No, never. It's funny. My daughter was just we were just having this conversation yesterday about Chris. We was in the car, and I never listened to the radio. I just happened to turn the radio on, and Jump was on, and she was like, "Yeah, Daddy, those are guys that wear their pants on backwards." I said, "Yeah, they will wear their clothes on backwards." And she stopped for a second. I was looking in the rearview mirror. And she said, "Did you ever wear your clothes backwards?" I was like, "No." Like, no, I was not going to do that. So yeah, as far as ATLiens, man, what's your favorite track on the album?
Well, I'm gonna go with my favorite track is it's got to be the quintessential OutKast song. If you were from an alien or you never heard of OutKast, you say, "Hey man, play me a song that describes OutKast," I would play Elevators. You know what I'm saying? Just because I think that song like shows you what OutKast is about. It shows skill, shows creativity. It's just like, I think that's the quintessential song. Like that's their, that's on their, the best song they got overall. But that's my favorite song on the album because it was literally me, my cousin, and his cousin rolling down the street with his mama. And like, so when that shit came out, like going to the game one time, we was listening to the song and I was like, it was like me, you, your mama, and my cousin too. And it was just like, we weren't rolling down the street on foes or nothing, but you know what I'm saying? But it was just funny. So, yeah.
No doubt, man. I think, let's see, my favorite track, I gotta say, and this is kind of hard for me because I love so many of the tracks on the album, but I'd probably say Wheels of Steel. Just the scratching and everything and just how they were rapping, man, that still is one of my favorite tracks. It's the favorite track on the album. Not necessarily the best track, but it's definitely the favorite track. So
when they do that at a concert, it's pretty dope too. I ain't mean to break in, but like when they do Wheels of Steel and they had the DJ get his little turn and be cutting it, it's like that's a good one to see at the show. Like,
I'm glad I saw them in concert and I saw them perform that actual song. So conversely, what song would you have done without on this album?
I'm gonna go with taking out the intro because it's an intro. Song wise, I'm gonna go with, I think it's Millennium.
Okay.
When he was like, come on, like what? Huh? I mean, but that's what I said. Picking, if I could do, I just feel like they could have cut a beat was kind of lazy, and it was just like the hook was super lazy. But that's the one I could just do without me. And it's not saying it's a bad song at all because with OutKast on their first 3 albums, I really don't think they had any bad songs. But they're still a worse song even doing with a classic album. It's still, it's a bad song with Illmatic. What's the worst song? I'm not saying it's a bad song, but it's just the worst song on that album. So,
you're right. And we've talked, me and E-Collective, we talked about that where, even on a classic album, you're gonna have a song that probably just did it or is not, to your liking or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it could just be sequencing. It come after a really great song, like a letdown. It might be a good song, but you just like, man, after that song that just went off, and now this come on, and it could just be anything. So it's just like, people get upset when you say, "Oh, you say they got a bad song." Right, it's a classic album.
Right. Yeah, you still gonna have a bad song with it. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Let's see. Song I could do without Extraterrestrial, E.T. And it could be because, like you said, I was cool with Millennium, and Extraterrestrial comes right behind Millennium. So I think once I heard it, out of this, where are you at? I was just like,
it's real slow. Like it's the beat. Yeah.
It's just real slow, melodic. It's not a bad song. It's one if they had not put it on the album, I'd have been cool. It wouldn't have been no big for me. I have here, as far as their championship moment, I think the release of Elevators as a single was one of their championship moments on this album, because this literally sounded and felt like something that we had not seen or heard in hip hop before. And it was melodic. It was something that was catchy. But, even if you get past the hook, Dre and Big Boy are spitting.
Yes, sir.
It's not like nowadays where you have, a catchy hook and then ain't nobody rhyming about nothing. No, Dre and Big Boy are actually spitting on this track. So I had that as their championship moment, and I found it interesting that what was this? I think it was late last year at the time of the recording. They did this thing on was it MTV? It might have been VH1. The 6 greatest songs, 6 most impactful songs in hip hop history. It was something that was done by Questlove and Black Thought of the Roots, and this song was one of them. Elevators. Of all the hip hop songs, they broke it down to 6 songs. This was one of the 6 tracks that made their list as far as greatest hip hop songs ever. So how did this particular album impact you as well?
That it kind of opened my mind up to see that first album, what I thought it was, or thought they were about, that they let me know that like they way deeper than this, and that let me know like, shit, Jerm, you gotta be more than that too. So it's just like I grew with them on this album because they only like 2 or 3 years older than me. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I grew with them, and even like my mind state changed with them. And I saw that it was, like I said, I think Big Boy had a child by this time. Mm-hmm. I think Bamboo was born. No, Bamboo was not, because he didn't come through till Snake on You. So I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. And so it was just like I matured more with this album. It's just so they did too, sound wise, musically. Like because at first I was one of those OutKast fans. Like, hold on, like I wasn't expecting this, because when Elevators first dropped, I was like, okay, I kind of dig it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's different. It's the second album. And then, when I got the actual album, I listened to it. Like, first listen, I was like, I don't know, man. This ain't. I was on the fence, and then I just kept listening, because I said, nah, it's something about this group. I fucks with them. So I kept listening. Then it just, opened my mind up, and I saw, like, oh, this greatness. And so.
No doubt. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, I feel you on that. I think for me that this album impacted me in a sense because, like I said, I was about to graduate from college. So from August all the way through December, this was one of the soundtracks that got played every single day. I mean, it didn't matter. And you can ask anybody who was around me at the time. If you can ask my girl, who's now my wife. I would play this. We had an apartment off campus. I played this in the apartment. I would play this on the way to campus, going to class. I played riding home. I would play it all the time. And it's something that never, and even to this day, it's an album that never got old for me. And it's always something where, like, when I listen to OutKast now, in particular, I always listen to these 3 albums together. Like, I never just say, okay, hey, I'm going to listen to ATLiens today. It's never that. It's always, oh, I'm going to run all 3 of these albums. I might run, the 3rd album first, and then the 2nd album, then the 1st album. I may do it like that, or I may go, in chronological order, but it's just this album impacted me because this was a critical time in my life as far as, about to being able to graduate from college and kind of figuring out, okay, what you want to do. And like I said, by that time, I had my eyes set on Atlanta. So this was like just really a prelude as to what was to come for me. Then we get to the 3rd championship. That would be Aquemeni. This album dropped September 29th, 1998. Also produced by Organized Noise, OutKast themselves, and Mr. DJ. According to the wiki, this album went double platinum, but I think this album went triple platinum. I'm not exactly sure, but let's just say triple platinum.
Sounds better.
I know, right? So, Jerm, September 29th, 1998. Where were you when this album dropped?
Oh, funny story. All right, so albums used to come out on Tuesdays. I know, shocking people. I know, shocking. We used to have to wait to Tuesday, Monday night at like midnight, right? You start getting albums. Yes, so I didn't get paid till Wednesday. And on that day, Hard Knock Life Volume 2 and OutKast came out. So we was at Willie's Records in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it was just like I was in line, and the lady just assumed that I wanted fucking Jay-Z's album because they had a stack of Jay-Z albums and a stack of OutKast albums. So she just assumed I wanted Jay-Z because, everybody in that line. So she just went ahead and put the Jay-Z down and said, I want the OutKast. But the funny story, I had the money, but my homeboy Nesto, God bless the dead, he was like, I tell you what. He said, Because he wanted the Jay-Z, I want the OutKast. But I was like, look, man, if I'm going to pay you back, I might as well get the OutKast instead of buying the Jay-Z. And I just, buy you the Jay-Z tomorrow and get paid. So he was like, cool. So I copped the album after I tell the lady, nope, I want the OutKast. So she gave me the OutKast. We go sit in the parking lot. I pop the CD in my car. We rolling up. Soon as the fucking first song come on, Return of the Gangster, I said, oh, this is a 5 mic album right here. Like soon as I heard the first doom doom, so I said, whoa. I said, this is a 5 mic album right here. So I mean, I knew it because I was like, the Source done shitted these boys on their 5 2 times. Because I think they got a 4.5 the first 2 albums. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And so I said, the Source done shitted these boys. I said, but as soon as I heard this one, I said, this is a 5 mic album. As soon as I heard it. And we sat there and listened to the whole album in its entirety without leaving the parking lot from the record store. And I was blown away by this album. Blown away.
Wow. Man, blown away. That is the key phrase. September 29th, 1998. By this time, I had moved to Atlanta. Was young, single, had a pocket full of money, and I was enjoying it. And I mean, like, it is really hard to describe to people who weren't here. I mean, I'll put it Jerm, and for those of you listening, when the album came out, the day that the album came out, there's a hip hop station here. It's called Hot 107.9 now, but I think at the time it was 97.5. They played the album on the air in its entirety. And when I tell you, you had to go everywhere. You had to, wherever you went to get the album, you had to make sure that they had copies there because there were places that were literally selling out. And I'm not talking about your little mom and pop stores. I'm talking about like a place like Best Buy who might get, 100 CDs. Like, if you didn't get that album that week, man, probably the first couple of days, there were Best Buys that were sold out. It was like, nah, you gotta come back.
Come back next week.
Yeah, and here's the thing, you listening that may be a little bit younger to understand. If you went to a record store, you went to a Best Buy or someplace like that, and they were sold out, like, imagine your best friend getting the album, and you don't have it, and you've got to wait, and you have no timetable as to when you'll be able to get it. It's mind-boggling when you think about it, and it's really inconceivable for those who can open up their Spotify or Tidal or whatever the case may be, or Apple Music, and just press a button. You can hear any song that you want to hear. But this album was so critical, man. I just remember going to Best Buy, getting it, and I remember a line at Best Buy, long ass line at Buy, and I just remember playing it, and I just kept playing it, and it was just like, much like you, Jerm. I mean, you knew when you heard it that it was a smash, and it was better than the last, it was better than the first, and it was just like, okay, like, I don't understand what's about to happen. And then we got word about the accolades, and I'll get into that in just a second as far as what the album got. So the singles that were released, Rosa Parks, Skew It on the Barbie featuring Raekwon, and The Art of Storytelling Part 1. So what made them outstanding on this particular album?
Okay, it seems like on this album they had mastered their sound. Like this was prime OutKast. It seemed like they were hitting on all the accords. It seemed like what one didn't say, the other one did. And so every song they did felt like a complete song. It was just like it was like they were like a basketball team that been playing together for years. They knew where everybody would be at on the floor. It was just like perfect timing. It's just like they didn't miss on this album right here. It was refined OutKast. It was like this is at the top of the game. And I'm gonna say this: 12 Cal is not telling the truth about how Atlanta was during the time when OutKast was out. Like this was like this was a good time in Atlanta. Like when OutKast albums like from '94 to that 2000 period. Like man, like Atlanta was a magical place then. So he's underselling it right now. I'm just gonna let y'all know that.
Well, I mean, it is one of those things, man, where I try to put it in the words as best I can, but for those of us who've been here a while, or for the people who are originally from here, it's what you call old Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do a podcast at some point on old Atlanta, but this was old Atlanta. I mean, like, it was when you could not go anywhere and not hear this album. It was incredible. It was everywhere. And I think one of the things that made this album so special and what made them standing on this album is that they did such a great job of representing the city. And I don't want to, and at the time, Atlanta was starting to bubble, as far as the music scene was concerned here. But, like, they put on for the city in no way I think that anybody could for their particular city because, there weren't, New York is different, obviously, and L.A. is different because, obviously they're bigger places and they're more, they have an established music history. Well, Atlanta's music history wasn't that long, and Atlanta's hip-hop history was even shorter. And here they are, standing at the forefront, and they literally put the city on their back, and they represented the city so well, man. It was crazy. I mean, like, you literally could not anywhere. If you're walking on the street, you heard this album. If you were in the clubs, you heard this album. And I mean, I'm talking like in the clubs, they would be playing B-sides. Like, they would be playing songs that normally wouldn't even get played on the radio, and they were just so beloved. And they really, like I said, they did a great job of putting the city on the map. This album, for me, just on a personal note, is one of my favorite albums of all time, like, period, in any genre. And I never get tired of playing, man. It's just incredible. This next question might be a little bit hard for you. Favorite track on this album?
Favorite track, I would say Aquemeni, just with the depth of the song, how deep it is, and the visual, just like both of them. I mean, that song there, because when you thought it was over and that shit came back on your ass, like the first time hearing that, I was just like, man, if I was at church or something, that's when you stand up and you just walk off, like when that person, man, that's when I just like, man, these boys done it again. I think that's song number 5, I believe. And so by song 5, when they did that on Aquemeni, I was just like, yeah, man.
Track 5.
Yeah, so that song there, yeah, that's by far. I ain't gonna say by far, because that song there is just so deep. Because I was messing with a girl, she was like a Nubian or something, or trying to be a Nubian at that time. So she really made me study that out.
Nubian.
Oh man, the people that they had like a compound down in Eatonton, Georgia. They had the pyramid and all that stuff. It's like I don't know, it's wild story. That's a whole nother 12 Cow podcast.
Yeah, we have to get you back on to talk about that. Yeah, I think, man, it was. Another thing I forgot to mention that made him outstanding was when you get to the second track, "Return of the G." I thought what was interesting there was you hear them actually address a lot of the rumors and innuendo that was being filtered out into the streets. People were wondering, especially by the time the second album came out, well, man, what's up with Andre? Yep. Like, is he on a cult? Is he in a cult? Is he on drugs? Is he gay? And those are things that kind of float around, and it felt good to hear them actually address that kind of stuff. And people were, in Big Boy's ear, like, yo, you should be leaving the group. Like, this dude about to make the group go crazy or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. But, people didn't understand their friendship and how close they are. And we also got to see the differences in Dre and Big Boy by the time this album came. One of the things that this album was promoted as, it was called The Pimp and the Poet. And that's really who Dre and Big Boy were, at that particular time. Andre was this artsy and craft, arts and craft kind of guy. And Big Boy was the street guy. And so, yeah, it you could see the blend of the two, and then just them addressing that on that particular track was outstanding to me. So favorite track, I'm a little biased on this track, and it's Good on the Barbie featuring Raekwon. And the reason why I'm going to say I'm biased is because of the video. I was at the video. And let me tell you how they did. So you listening, you're familiar with the video. If you're not familiar with the video, pull it up on YouTube. So OutKast is filming this video and for Skewed on the Barbie featuring Raekwon, and it's going to be at the House of Blues downtown. It was called the Tackle. And so, like, what happened was they just came on the radio one day. like Dre and Big Boy were in the studio. They came in the radio. They said, hey, if y'all want to be in the video, come to the Tabernacle today at 5:00. And literally, everybody spent the Tabernacle that day. And we got in, and like, you know, there were people in the balcony area and stuff like that, people on the floor. I was on the floor, but the camera didn't get me. Or maybe they did, but they didn't show. I was right there at the front, and they ran through the video, I want to say 3 times. And that's all that they did. And that probably took maybe about 2 or 3 hours. And that was it. And then when I never forget when Raekwon came out, man, the chicks lost their mind. They were going crazy. And I thought that was interesting because, like, at the time, you know, you really didn't see a lot of New York rappers rapping with Southern rappers. Like, that was unheard of. And for Ray to jump on, and I was a big Raekwon, still am a big Raekwon fan. For him to jump on that track and then for them to be busting on that track, I thought was crazy. But, yeah, that's my favorite track because I was at the video, and literally, like I said, they just came on the radio and just said, hey, if you want to be in the video, we're shooting at the Tabernacle at 5:00. And like I said, half Atlanta showed up, and they turned a lot of people away. I just happened to get there early, but that was dope. So I would say Skew It on the Barbie for me, only because it's sentimental, because I was actually in the video. Conversely, what song could you have done without on this album?
I'm gonna
Because
get killed.
There's only one answer.
I'm gonna get killed for this one. Rosa Parks.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I mean, even though, like, concert wise, it's a fun song, but I mean, if it wasn't on the album, it wouldn't change it. It wouldn't. I don't think it made the album any better. I don't think it made the album any worse. So if you took it off, I wouldn't. I don't think it was the dynamics of the album if you took Rosa Parks off.
Okay. For me, there's only one answer.
Oh, you better not say it, 12 Kyle. You better not say it. I know what you're gonna say.
Mamacita is awful.
No, it's not.
That song is that is. Now, you mentioned OutKast didn't make any bad songs. That's a bad song. I absolutely hate that song.
Kyle, that's one of Andre hardest verses.
Yeah, but the Mamacita, oh my gosh, it's awful. The hook is awful. It's awful, man.
That was like, this album was like the first time we had some people outside of the DF on the album. And I don't know who, Masada, I don't know who she is.
Awful.
Did she ever rap again after this song?
I don't know. I don't know if they picked her up maybe they found her at the Tabernacle. Maybe she was standing next to me at the Tabernacle and they let her rap on the album. I don't know. She was awful. That hook is awful.
Mahogany queen teeth on the right. Be careful what you back first. I mean, okay, so I mean, I don't know, man. I'm on the fence with Mamacita, man. I love that song.
Let me tell you something, Jerm. At the time, they could have gotten. Okay, if you wanted a female MC, you could have gotten Tion or
anybody.
Or
who's Tion? Who's Tion?
T-Boz. I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot. I know. See, celebrities. You called her by her real name. I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sorry.
I don't know her personally. I just call her Tion for some reason.
Yeah, because you know her, 12. I mean, you know her, man. Come on, man. Just like, you was just at the OutKast video shoot. You called T-Boz by her first name. I'm sure you called Jay Sean, too. You be like, hey, Sean. I mean.
Boy, you stupid. Oh, man, that's funny. But, yeah, they could have found another female MC if she was god awful. Oh my god. And
maybe she won a contest and that was her prize.
I'll put it like this. For me, and I can't speak for anybody else, I have to be in a good mood to want to actually listen to that song, because every time it's a skip for me. And like we mentioned earlier, I have a 5 mic album and it could have a skip or two on it, and that is my one skip on this album. I do not want to hear that. I get what you're saying about Rosa Parks, and there's some people that probably don't necessarily cater to Rosa Parks just because, you know, of its airplay, and maybe people got tired of it or whatever the case may be. I like that.
I like the song. Mm-hmm. I mean, I met Egyptian. She hit me like I like what he was saying. Like right. That was, but it's like yeah. Like the Nathaniel song when dude rapping from jail. That shit hard.
Yeah, that's hard. Oh, he was going off, and
he
like
was
you
killing
said,
it.
Like you said, I mean, Dre's verse on Mamacita is dope. It's a dope verse. I just can't get past the hook. It's just, oh my gosh, she is just awful. Shout out to what's her name again?
Masada or something like that.
Masada, if you're listening, I'm sorry. The championship moment for Aquemeni was, like Jerm said a little earlier, finally achieving the vaunted 5 mic rating in the Source magazine. Just to explain briefly for you guys who may not have been around or may not have been outside, to get a 5 mic rating in the Source was damn near impossible at that particular time. To be a Southern rap act and get that was virtually impossible, because keep in mind that it was voted on by the staff at the Source. So it's not like if I'm the one that's reviewing the album and I say, oh, it's 5 mics, and Jerm is my coworker, and Jerm's like, okay, well, hey, I agree. And me and Jerm say it's like they had to go through like 20 people to get this 5 mic rating. And so, and in typical, sign of the times fashion, normally when we would hear that an album might be getting a 5 mic in the Source, there was usually a bomb threat at the Source. Like people literally, I mean, of course you can't do that now, but people literally would call the Source and threaten to blow up the building if this particular album got a 5 mic rating. People took it that serious. It's not like how it is on Twitter now, where you can just voice your opinion and people go back and forth with you and get mad. I mean, like they literally would threaten to blow up the building because this particular artist is about to get 5 mics. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys some context about that. So yeah, Jerm, this particular album, how did this one affect you?
Oh man, again, more maturity. It just showed me depth and to read between the lines. Like, it was just more than words at this point with OutKast and me, because I was one of them OutKast stans. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it was like it made me really open my mind reading other books and stuff that was related to what things they were talking about. So, and it didn't help. Like I said, I was messing with the new Nubian chick, so it was. Think of the hoteps, the people that be standing on the corners yelling and shit at you and stuff. Like it's kind of it's like it's in the vein of that. But this album right here, it really it more maturity, more growth, more like just showing me its power in words. Like I mean, OutKast this album blew me away. Like I was only 20 when this album came out, so I was just like, wow, I got a lot more growing to do, buddy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't seen nothing yet, pal. Man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh, this album impacted me in so many ways, man. Like you said, it was about growth, about really just seeing these guys kind of come full circle, and all of the successes that came with this album. We celebrated it because, and I felt even more closer to this album because I was here in Atlanta at the time. Like you said, Jeremy, old Atlanta at that particular time, man, it was a vibe, man, just to be here and be in the city when this happened, when this album dropped. And like I said, it's unheard of to hear a radio station say, hey, we're going to play your album so much, we're going to play it in its entirety for the next hour, commercial free. And, DJ would pop in and talk a little bit, but, like that was just unheard of. It also showed like where Andre and Big Boy were as far as like where they were as men. And then we saw them even striking out even more, because by the time they started touring for this album, Dre was showing up in whatever. I mean, he might have on some shoulder pads. He was on some Prince
marching band outfit.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like he was getting even more crazier. And I want to say, by the time they started recording this album, I want to say he was dating Erykah Badu at the time.
Most definitely. That's what he was talking about in Rosa Parks. So
it was just beautiful to see, man, and like I said, seeing them get the love and getting the accolades and everything that they got for this album, I think it just resonated with me just a little bit more being here at the time. And, it felt like when they won, it felt like we won. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they were like our champions. So, they'll always be one of my favorite hip-hop groups, period, no matter what. And like I said, this album is one of my favorite albums, period, any genre. I never get tired of listening to it.
Never.
So before we get out of here, Jerm, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
We always say this on the 3Peat. We need you to rank these albums from, in your opinion, best to worst. I mean, in this case, I don't really know if it's the worst album.
Yeah. From first to third. We'll say first to third.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my personal opinion, I'm going to go with Aquemeni first. Aquemeni first, Southern Playalistic second, and ATLiens third. And that's why I'm going to leave it at.
Okay. I got to go reverse. I got to go Aquemeni first, ATLiens second, and Southern Playalistic third. And I mean, like, it is like splitting hair for me.
Yeah. It's like, and it is depending on the day. Depending on the day, 2 and 3 can switch places at any time.
Yeah.
But I think Aquemeni is the most complete album. ATLiens is the hardest album, and Southern Playalistic is my favorite album, if that makes any sense to anybody out there. So
makes total sense. Total sense, bro. No doubt. But yeah, man, before we get out of here, man, Jerm, once again, tell the people where they can catch you, where they can catch the podcast, and all of that good stuff.
Man, you can catch me out here in these Twitter streets, Frocast, at Nappy Afro if you're nasty. You can catch me on Instagram as it's the Frocast on Instagram. And every Friday we do a little podcast called The Cast, me and my wife, every Friday. So check us out on all DSPs, and that's about it, man.
For sure. Well, I got to thank my man King Jerm for coming through. Shout out to Queen Jerm. Shout out to the Frocast Nation. And shout out to you all for listening. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle Podcast. So for my man King Jerm, I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's.
If you get a chance to come to the 12 Kyle studio, the hors d'oeuvres are delicious.
This guy.